All right, everybody, and welcome to the 9 Years podcast. I am Nick Draper, joined as always by the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deacons. Thank you for downloading the show this week. We come to you with a 9 Years podcast exclusive injury update. You won't get this anywhere else, not from any other source. You are hearing this breaking news audio with some injury news. And that is, Stu, I've done something to my foot. It's just on the back of the heel. And I just can't, when I'm walking on it, it's really sore. So I don't know what I've done to it, but I might have to keep it elevated for the evening, maybe. Anyway, I'm sure the
Well,
listeners were delighted or really, feel they're in the loop now with this breaking news.
I did see on Twitter this week. Sorry, X. Let's call it what it is.
Nazi
Um,
Twitter.
Someone did put a new shirt that we're going to be wearing as of tomorrow, which is obviously we're recording this on Friday. We'll have a bubble wrap all around it. Because I did look at everyone after the game, when anyone walked past the tunnel, I was like, be careful, don't stretch too far, don't do too much energy, be careful because this place feels like, well, it felt like an A&E for the last couple of weeks.
Feels like an episode of Casualty every week at the moment at AFC Wimbledon land. The bubble wrap shirt, I would be quite happy to see us wear that against Burton Albion for two reasons. One, for the extra protection, but two, because it's blue. And we
Yeah.
should be playing in blue away at Burton, which we have done in the past. So I anticipate we will be on Saturday, but you never know. I mean, we wore yellow at Lincoln. Still trying to get my head around that one, but never mind. As I say, thanks for downloading the show this week. We will be talking about injuries, the disastrous Easter weekend on the pitch with results and injuries, obviously. We've got news on our ownership model and the 50+1 vote, thoughts on that, and finances in the division as a whole. We've got some news from other places around the club, season awards coming up. We've got Richard Osman Foyo's House of Games, and then we'll look ahead to the game with Burton and maybe a little bit at Stockport and the situation at the foot of League One as well. So it is an action-packed show, to use a cliche. And where should we begin, Stu? Well, let's do the most recent one because we can talk about, we lost at Lincoln, obviously, on Good Friday. Didn't deserve to lose that game whatsoever. Got done by a late, late goal, which was assisted by a hand. And then we came into Luton and we got our asses handed to us. But I don't know. I don't know which. Should we start with Luton? Should we talk about the injuries? We knew we were going into that Luton game without the players we already knew about. So we already knew about Tilly and Stevens and Brown and Hippolyte. Ryan Johnson got an injury at Lincoln, so knew he was out. Zach Nelson unavailable because he can't play against his parent club. So we already knew we were facing an uphill battle. But then we get an injury to Patrick Bauer in the first half. Then Joe Lewis gets injured. Omar Bugle ends up injured as well, although that had little effect on the full-time result. It was just a disaster on every level. But all that said, even despite that, we kind of made it a little bit too easy for Luton, I think, from the get-go.
Yeah, well, hey, look, Luton had a good result on the Good Friday, being a Peterborough 2-1 at home. Their away record is terrible. We spoke about Luton a number of times, haven't we, in terms of they've got great individual players. There's no doubt about that. Collectively as a team, I don't think they're that great. And we just looked off it. Whether that's a case of we know our squad's not the most resilient in terms of strength and depth, and that we had players out, and we played Good Friday, and I think the Lincoln game we played well, but I think we also expanded a lot of energy in that game.
Yeah.
Let's not get us wrong. Lincoln are a good team, scored lots of goals. The most goals in the division, beating Cardiff recently. So they're a good team. I think we had to overperform to do as well as we did. So I think that's where we took a little bit out. There's no doubt we set up a bit more defensively. So playing Oggs at right wing back was a bit of it sort of meant that we were probably more wanted to be more strong at the back. I just don't think we got it right. If I'm being honest with you, I think Hackford was disappointing. And that combination of Omar and Hackford I think it allowed Luton to have so much possession. And in the end, if you give a team like Luton with their players they've got, then they're gonna get chances.
what I would say about Luton is the two times we played in this season is I felt that they have actually respected us as an opponent, and they haven't. We talk about this almost every week. I say, key to being successful in this division: do not make mistakes. And they were very much when they needed to play it safe and just do the simple things well, they did the simple things and the basics right. I'm just comparing them to a team like I'm still a little bit insulted by the way Reading came to us, to be honest with you. And just I felt like they just thought they had to turn up to win, and Bradford to a certain extent as well. I don't think
Yeah,
Luton have done that. They were, and I think, but also what Luton have got, they've just got players that are way too good for this level. Casey
yeah,
Palmer, I mean, it's ridiculous. Let's be honest with you.
yeah.
Jordan
Do you know
Clark, we
what
know about.
do you
Liam
know what I
Walsh,
watched?
too good.
I watched Casey. Yeah, I like Walsh. I must admit. I looked at Casey Palmer. Do you know what? Like, you're right. In the second half, I looked at his movement. It was just unreal in terms of
Yeah.
how he found space. I think there was one point that typified what I thought actually in terms of good players work hard. They do the
Mm,
basics, and he lost the ball, and he must have done shuttle runs to each centre half as he got played off and played off.
right.
And it was just, and the crowd whips up naturally when you do that. And it just, hey, look, yeah, he was quality. He got involved in a little bit of verbals with our home men, which makes me chuckle. Like you can give as much abuse you want to a player when they respond. It's like, oh, give him a yellow card. So, just think, why are you crying, Wolf? Do you know what I mean? That sort of side of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, they all good. Do you know what I thought the biggest key for them was they nullified and King easily. I'm
Yeah.
not too sure
Yeah.
who the right back was, but he had him all game.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Didn't
Izzy
lose a one
Jones,
on one. Didn't lose a one on one.
no, he's a player that I'm not as familiar with in the Luton squad, but I must admit, yeah, I was really impressed by him at right back, and that's the problem we have. Unfortunately, we did wonder about Nakeng, and we thought, will teams start to get a little bit wiser to him? And it seems to be the case. He hasn't had as much influence, but then we've got no goal threat, which doesn't help. We've literally got zero goal threat at the moment. So how much do we
No, and
expect?
it felt to me that was where we felt we were going to get some joy. So Seddon, Reeves, and Keng sort of really got over that side, but Luton also overloaded that side, realising that we probably weren't going to go to Ogs too much to get out, so we weren't going to go that side. But nothing against Keng. I just felt he come up against a player who just was quick, a bit too much for him, and he just had zero effect. And the problem was that was where I think we felt our outball would be to get some joy going forward, and we never did. And not shutting one player out should shut your whole team out. But the problem is we don't. I was saying the other day we've lost like 23 goals from our team in losing
Yeah.
Stevens and Marcus Brown, and that link up that Marcus Brown had with Omar and stuff like that. We don't have that, and Hackford is probably it's not fair to have a go at Hackford, but he's out of form, he's out of confidence, and he was just chasing balls, wasn't he? It was just, and so the strength in depth is shown by the fact is we've lost so many goals. And we don't know where we are now. We want to be an attacking team, but actually, I was listening to One Was That a Dream match earlier today, and they made a point of going, well, maybe we need to stop being so attacking and actually be more defensive and keep a clean sheet. I don't think
Mm.
we can.
Why do you say that?
I think teams are good. I just think teams are too good, especially the opposition we've got. Burton, I know we're going to do a review on Burton. They picked up a little bit of form. Webster's come back for them, which is taking the mickey, to be honest with you. He's their best player by miles. He's been out for 4 months. But hey, I'll return just so I can play against you guys. And then you look at Stockport, Huddersfield, Wigan, Plymouth. We have got tough games, and I don't think we keep clean sheets in those games. So I get what the guys are saying, but I think we're a little bit stuck because we can't go for a clean sheet, and we don't have anything enough going forward to create any chaos.
What we are missing still, I will die on the hill of this point, is a truly defensive holding midfield player that does the dirty things and can sit there and stop and break up attacks and things like that. You saw it, probably best example of it was the first goal on Monday. Although there's an argument about Lincoln's goal as well, which I'll come on to later. But on
Yeah,
Monday, ball breaks and Jake Reeves does not have the legs to try and chase down anyone, and he knows that. So he's got the sense to then head towards his own goal, which is sensible. But none of the other midfield, Maycock and Ali Smith, do not have any defensive nous, and they are. I don't know what they're doing, to be honest with you. Harsher on Maycock in this instance. Ali Smith just doesn't seem to notice that there are midfielders running towards our goal. It switches off completely because he's not really that defensively minded. And that's the problem we have. We don't have that player. So, like we said, when you're playing against, I mean, Clark, Walsh, and Palmer, Richards as well, it was ridiculous, right? We had no chance in that game, realistically. But then you have to, if you had someone that was just a little bit more savvy defensively in midfield, you might be able to at least make things a bit more difficult for them.
You know what's interesting is I think I agree with you on that. I agree with you on the first goal, but I think Andy Smith has actually done really well in that position, that defensive position.
He's
But
done
you're
better in
right.
terms of
He's
winning duels and things like that, but just he's not.
he's not at that level. That's
Yeah,
your problem. So I think when you're playing really well, I think Andy Smith, and we got a lot of possession because we didn't have much possession. We lost the ball as soon as it went up front, so it meant we were more on the defensive. And I think that's probably where his defensive awareness, I agree with you, gets found out, and it did get found out on Monday. But I think he's done all right in that role. But when you start not having a lot of possession, then naturally he's going to do more defensive work, which is not his strength. Maycock, bless him, great going forward, no doubt about it. Again, no defensive awareness. I just don't. Look, I just think we got issues when Patrick Bauer can't survive a whole game. He can't survive a half, and Joe Lewis just keeps picking up injury after injury, and it's self-inflicted, if we're being honest.
yes, no, very much
Um,
so.
and the Omar hamstring injury is probably a sign of overloading.
Yeah,
So it's all coming together, isn't it? And it probably showed in one game,
yeah.
which is not when you want it.
And there is one player we've not even spoken about yet, but we'll save that for the moment because you've mentioned Omar there and talk about injuries and hamstrings. Is Matt Stevens a hamstring as well?
I believe it was. I believe
Second
it
time
was.
this season?
Was that his first injury? Or was it a hamstring? His first
I thought
injury?
it was. I thought it was.
Possibly, which makes me chuckle because of all the due respect to Matty Stevens, hamstrings are normally with players that have got pace.
I was going to say Hackford's injury earlier in the season was hamstring. In fact, I think we had loads of hamstrings earlier in the season, and now and it is, but that in itself, as you say, tells a story.
Yeah, it's twofold. It's either we're and I look one of not a criticism I've got to Johnny Jackson, because I think you can criticise him for what he's achieved, to be truthful. But one of the weaknesses I think is probably substitutions. But I also think we've got to look at probably what we're doing in our rehab, and because we picked up a lot of muscle injuries. I think out of the last lot of injuries, I think Joe Lewis is probably the only impact injury. And wow, that was an impact um, on that. So we've got to
Yeah.
look and go. It might be a mixture of workloads, but also maybe what we're doing in training. Because we have picked up, I think Matt Stevens was a training injury.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
So we maybe have to look at that.
Training ground. It all comes back to the training ground, and it all comes back to money and investment. But anyway, we'll save that conversation till a bit later. The Joe Lewis injury then takes a bad touch, then has to stretch to clear the ball out of trouble. Takes the ball, as far as I'm concerned, not even a foul, let alone a free kick, let alone a booking. But that's what was given by the referee. But the injury, so we don't have. So I joked at the start with injury news, is because at time of recording, by the time we finished recording, Stu, then I imagine we would have had something from the club, like pre-match interviews with Johnny Jackson and whatever, before the Burton game. And I'll keep an eye out as we are recording. But as it stands, we have no update on any of these things. Joe Lewis's injury looked horrific on Monday. It looked like his kneecap. Of course, we're looking from a distance. It looked like his kneecap was out of place. It wasn't that, I don't think. I think it was just a huge swelling from whatever had happened. But I don't know what this means for Burton.
Yeah, I saw. Obviously, I do my press and media, don't I? So I was, I was chatting about how horrendous it looked. Like I looked at it once and looked away and didn't look again. I
Yeah,
think because Joe Lewis was getting up and trying to walk with it, and I'm like,
yeah,
and I suppose if you think about it, if his kneecaps out, then he can't walk on it. You'd think.
yeah.
So,
You think yes?
what I was told, and I saw
Then
Joe.
again, Stu. Then again, I just have to point out Kurt Angle won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. So anything is possible.
So I saw Joe Lewis on his way out, and he had a bandage over his knee. I asked him if he's okay, and he said, "Yeah." From what I heard, was he had swelling that come up really quickly. They probably had to lace it and then stitch it up. So my thinking is, even if it wasn't that, where the knee is, that's probably the worst place to have stitches and play you because you just open it up every time. So I think even if he hasn't done as serious damage, I think the stitches were probably I can't believe that was a 1 or 2 stitch job. So I think I don't see how he plays against Burn. I think at the best chance we probably got is him playing against Stockport. But I wouldn't say Lewis has been outstanding either. So
Well,
he's not an automatic in. If I'm looking at injuries, all due respect to Joe Lewis, I'm looking more at Ryan Johnson.
yeah,
When do we get him back?
yeah. I'm hoping there's better news on that one because it didn't seem that bad. I think he might have got a kick. I don't know what happened on Friday that resulted in him having to come off at half time, but
Uh,
hoping that it's been a week, maybe enough for him. Oh, well, we just don't know at this moment in time. As I say, I'll keep looking at now. This all results in so Bauer came off, and that just made a little bit of a we had a little bit of a reshuffle, didn't we? Because then Oggs did then go back to centre half, and Nathan Asimwe came on and goes right wing back, whatever, fine. Then Joe Lewis gets injured. Sam Hutchinson comes on. Now, where do we go from here? Okay, first things first. It did not appear to be the initial decision that was made
That's
that Hutch
polite.
was going to come on.
Yeah.
Kai Jennings was stripped and ready to come on, and then they sort of, I think, between the coaching staff, they suddenly went, "No, this is ridiculous. We cannot do anything other than bring Hutch on at this point." Hutch then gets himself stripped, looks properly pissed off as he gets changed. Not because he's coming on. I think he was pissed off because the decision wasn't that he was coming on in the first place. I think he was kind of like, "What are we? Why am I?" Anyway, it's quite apparent. I didn't think Hutchinson had minutes in him at all, more than maybe 5-10 minutes. We have not seen him, I don't think, since Huddersfield away in November. All right.
Yeah.
I know he's been on the bench, but clearly at no point has he ever been used. We've put Seddon at centre half. We've moved players around to accommodate without having to get Hutchinson on, and then we've brought him on and we've asked him to play 60 odd minutes. Johnny
Yeah.
Jackson himself admitted afterwards he wouldn't really wanted him more than half an hour at the most.
Yeah.
Can he then go? Can he then play on again on Saturday? I don't know what the situation is, but clearly there are concerns about his ability to play a sustained amount of time. And then on the evidence on Monday as well, difficult because of the situation. But I thought he did well considering everything. He's not played any football, so how on earth are we expecting to get 60 minutes? And then are we really expecting we're going to get 90 minutes out of him? But I don't think there's a chance in hell. To be honest with you.
No, from what I saw, I'll be truthful. I didn't look at it straight away. The person I was sitting with probably clocked it more than I did. I was just like looking up at the sky, going, "How many injuries are we going to pick up?" Like it was just like, "What have we? Like what shit have we walked in? How many ladders have we walked underneath?" Do you know what I mean? Like, but from what I was told, it looked like Reeves was going to go and drop in the centre half, and then Jennings. And I think there was a discussion against the management team that wouldn't happen. Do you know what I did sense? And I felt for the management team because they looked like they had just been, they looked like, what the hell was going on?
Yeah.
Because there's luck and there's luck. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they looked, I'll be truthful. I think when Omar went off, they looked defeated. They looked like,
yeah, and that's fair
and
enough. We all
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we all felt that way,
Yeah.
you know. So I think they just didn't really know what to do for the best, and I think in the end it was a case of, I don't think Hutchinson is going to have more than. I think if you get away with one half, you're doing well.
Yeah.
But also not against a team like Luton where you've got Al Hamady up against you. So I think, no due respect to lower teams, but like a Northampton or Rotherham, I think you might get away with it. But then we went to 4, didn't we? We went to 4 at one point at the back, and our centre halves were Oggs and Hutch. And the second goal showed it because Oggs backed off, then come in and tried to cover the person. He tried to cover round, and then Hutchinson just got 1-on-1 against Al Hamady, and that was game over. It did make me laugh that Nathan Bishop then had a go at Hutchinson, and Hutchinson just put his arms up and going, "One, I wasn't at fault, and 2, what do you expect?
Yeah, what are you expecting me to do in that situation?
I'm running on fumes here. Do you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
But it just, unfortunately, it just showed. Hindsight's a great thing. I probably would have moved Addy Smith back in there, if I'm being honest with you, because yes, his defensive awareness isn't great, but it's always better if you're actually seeing things come on you rather than looking around you.
So to speak.
Yeah, but hey, look, the only thing you can really say now is players like Foyo and Jennings are going to get more than enough game time now.
Yes.
To demonstrate what they can do, and I think Kai's had a great loan spell at Sutton. Obviously, he's forgotten how to take corners since he moved over from
Well,
Gannon. He's forgotten how to take corners since he moved over from Gannon Green Lane. Unless the air's different over there.
well, the thing is with the Jennings corners is that the only when you see Kai Jennings score direct from a corner,
Yeah.
what you don't see is how many corners he had in total. Because that, for all we know,
Selective
that could have been,
highlights.
yeah, that could be one corner from 50 on the evidence of Monday, which was hilarious. Because you know what, Jake Reeves takes a poor corner. I was like, why is Reeves taking corners? Get Reeves off set pieces. It's a joke. And then someone comes on and does even worse. It's like, okay, fine. I don't know if it was a ploy. We thought we could get some joy at the near post because the problem is, again, it wasn't a fair fight on Monday. It was ridiculous. And they had Anderson back in from nowhere. He's not been around for a little while. So he's come straight back into the team. He's like 8'4".
Yeah.
And then a Doffin at centre half, which is basically if Luton do sneak into the playoffs, a lot of it will be because they've got a Doffin back in and Palmer has come in because those two players are, again, too good for the level, really. We got nothing out of a Doffin all game. So maybe we were thinking, go near post with the corners because in the air, we've got absolutely zero chance. Although playing Jake at centre half would have been quite nice to see for the aerial battles in that instance. Anyway,
the funny thing is like Zachy Wells played and then got injured, and then they bring on Al Hamady, which just tells you everything you need to know.
Do you know what though? Do you know what I know? But the thing is, Al Hamady has not had a good season at all.
No,
all right, he's barely played, and when he has played, he's been rubbish for Luton, to be honest with you. So, although it looks like he had a very good second half, and I can't really argue with that on the evidence, don't get carried away, Luton fans. Is all I'm going to say.
Oh yeah. But in terms of if we had him on the bench, he wouldn't have been on the bench. He'd have started.
He would have been
on that side. Yeah. Do you know what? Everyone's gone out how poor Jake Reeves was. I'm like, I don't think anyone covered himself in glory.
No.
But
how do you single out anyone?
He just is. So all of a sudden he's turned into George Frankham. Which is going to be interesting because obviously on Thursday night they both could be in the same room together. So I don't know who we booed up the quickest really on Thursday. But it's just I think you get to a stage where fans have just turned on Jake Reeves, which I find amazing. If I'm being honest with you, he wasn't by any stretch the poorest player out there. He wasn't by any stretch the best player out there. But yeah, it is what it is. I think no matter what Jake does now, I think he's going to be overanalyzed and critical. And that's the way it is. I just hope that you're going to change that. But one of it was interesting after the game. Johnny done a few interviews, and Johnny normally takes defeats really badly, which I don't mind. But he sort of looks like philosophical about it, or as if like what I can't. What can you control?
Well, I had two thoughts of this. One, I thought he came across really, really well because sometimes JJ, I've said in the past, he can when we lose a game, he can come across quite sulky and quite immature, actually, in some respects.
Yeah,
I didn't get that feeling from him on Monday. I thought he held it very well. He conducted himself really, really well in those post-match interviews, especially with the BBC. But then I also wondered if there was an element of shock involved because of everything that had gone on.
I just think I felt for him on the touchline. Like I say, when Omar went off, and you can argue that, hey, look, we left ourselves in a shit situation because that was the last sub window and we should have made the sub.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're probably right. I think that's the weakness of Johnny. I don't know if Omar made it obvious that he was struggling or whether it was something that happened after it. But I would have probably bought Omar off anyway and bought on Foyer, yeah, I'd have probably done that if I'm being truthful. Or, let's be fair, we got excited for a little bit because we saw Leighton Stewart jump up and run down the touchline. So, if we're saying about Hutchinson's got any minutes in him, then I don't know what Leighton Stewart's got in him. Again, I think that's going to be a quiz question for years to come. Who do we sign and never ever see?
Brody Hughes.
Well, he's disappeared. Although if Brody Hughes doesn't get on the bench at some point now, we have to send a search party out.
He is the official word is he's picked up an injury that was keeping him out for the season. That was the last we heard from Craig Cope. So
fair enough. Yes. But yeah, do you know what? I just looked at the bench and I looked at all of them. And the thing is, right, when Ashley Bays doesn't get out of his seat and looks demoralised, you sort of know you're in trouble. So I think Johnny Jackson probably saw it as, okay, do you know what, we've got 5 games left. Is that right? 5 games left.
5.
And it's probably more case now of getting behind his team and the players that are playing. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to go, we're fucked because we've got injury after injury. Because you're going to look at all the players that are coming in going, 1 second, Gaffer doesn't rate me. So
Yeah.
he's got a very challenging job, and this will now be a test of, from what I hear from behind the scenes, that Johnny Jackson is a very good a man manager.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
those things that he's done in the early part of the season are now going to come to fore, because those relationships are going to need to be really strong. Because he's going to call on players now that probably haven't even got on the bench on that side of it, or loaned out. I don't know what we can recall in terms of loans. We've got Horan at Walton and Hersham. We've got Sutcliffe
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't know whether we can recall them at this point. Do we
Would
recall
you?
them?
I wouldn't even bother, to be honest with you.
And this is a decision, is it? Do you move people around? Do you put square? Do you put round? Was it square pegs in round holes? That's it.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yep.
Do you put square pegs in round, or do you go? Actually, do you know what? He's a centre half. He knows what to do defensively. I just think it's the games we've got. Like, not being funny. Stockport hit form,
I
which
know. I
which
know.
they, and do you know what? There's no fluke. That's what they do. They hit
Yeah.
form at the right time. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got obviously Plymouth, Huddersfield. The games we've got, it's difficult to see where we get anything from.
Well, we'll come on to that when we look ahead to the games. We will talk about the situation at the bottom of the table. Just on squad things, there are some positives. There is a chance Hippolyte does come back in. That would be nice. We
Yeah,
still don't know exactly about some of the others. There's still chances we'll see some of the other ones. But don't forget as well, Aaron Sassu was back in action. And that's a positive. And Aaron Sassu could save our season. We don't know exactly what position. I guess we want to play him as a centre forward now, so maybe that is what will happen. But what I would say is Jennings, yes, Jennings, Foyo, Nikeng, Sassu, these are all very, very young players. So I don't fancy going away to teams like Wigan with lots of experience or whatever, and Plymouth. Yeah, anyway, we'll
the
cross those
benefit.
bridges when it comes to it, I suppose.
Yeah, the benefit is the games are at home. I think we've got 3 at home, 2 away.
Yeah, Wigan. Yeah,
Uh,
Wigan's away. Yeah,
yeah, so that's what you'd want. You want your home games. I think it's going to be more important than ever now that the fans get behind the team. They do. I think they were in shock just as much as everyone else was on Monday. But it really does mean that we need to, really get behind these guys, because we're going to need them to perform, and they are going to be under pressure. And we just have to. Hey, look, we have to hope that Exeter run out of games.
yeah,
Um, that's where we are. I think we're looking at, even though we've got a 4 point lead over them, I think we were looking at people doing us favours
yeah,
than what we can do. So we have to hope that they don't. What we have to remember, right, the teams are down there for a reason. They don't win back-to-back games.
yeah.
However, we also know that
Until
this,
they, until they get to the
yeah, we
business
all know
end
at
of
this
the
part of the
season. Yeah,
season that there are some freak results,
yeah.
and yeah, that's what worries you. Do you know what I mean? And we might be able to get a freak result, but at the moment we just keep getting freak injuries, and yeah, I think we're going. I'd be true. I think we're going to be looking at as much on our phones of what everyone else is doing than we probably are going to be looking on pitch. If I'm being truthful.
And teams like Exeter and the teams down there, the only one I think maybe you could argue don't is Blackpool, but all the other teams, they have people that score goals. So Exeter, Wareham scored like 20 odd goals, and then Magennis has scored the other one. And then Burton have got Shade and Beasley who score goals. So we'll come on to that later. But
Yeah.
all these things, yeah, you start to worry. Just Lincoln, because we haven't spoken about Lincoln, and congratulations to Lincoln winning
Yes.
winning
Well
promotion. They've
deserved.
won the league. Yeah, fair, absolutely fair. They are the textbook example of what, again, I'm going to repeat myself, very sorry, textbook example of a team that is set up at this level, do not make mistakes, be hard to beat, difficult to beat, be a nightmare to play against. And nothing summed this up more for me than the fact I looked at their back four, and their back four were just, it was the land of the giants. And we got very little out of them, despite the fact Riley Towler at left back looked not particularly fantastic at all. In fact, I think
But he's not a
we
left
caused
back,
him a
is
few
he?
problems. He's not a left back, but he's a giant.
Yeah.
So when you stick balls in the box, they are going to win those all day long, especially when it comes, and then at the other end as well, be it with a handball or not. But actually, the point I wanted to make earlier about the defensive midfield role is that winning goal. It does come from a ball in our box, but for the first time, I think in the whole game, we were just slow to react to that second ball.
Yep.
And I think Smith and Jennings didn't really press to go and win those balls as they dropped out of the box, and that's allowed them to then move it wide and get the cross in. So it's just those little things. Yes, of course it's handball and it shouldn't stand, but that is the difference, isn't it? We make a mistake and they exploit it. Whereas if we do get a chance, I think Nelson had probably our best chance. We don't exploit it.
Yeah, and do you know what? They brought 3 subs on, didn't they? I think 10, 15 to go.
Yeah.
And I think they've got one of the best records for subs impacting in terms of goals scored from subs and stuff like that.
Mm.
And there's no secret why they've scored a lot of late goals. If you look at teams that get promoted or win the league, you tend to find that they stay strong the whole game
Yeah.
on that side of it. And it's really weird, right? Because normally when you look at a team that's won the league and that's what they're going to do, you normally think that really like none of our players would probably walk into that team. However, I look at that team, it's a team of average is not the right word. They're good players, but they're not great players at this level. So
Yeah.
you could argue
Mm.
there's players that from our team that probably would go into that team, no problem at all.
Yeah.
It just shows you the collective is better than the individual, and that's where they are. Because you're right, they we beat them 2-0 at our place, but that's because they got a player sent off early on. But they do the basics right. They stuck by their manager, and they're not too dissimilar to how Johnny wants to set us up.
Well,
Um,
this is you sound like you're describing our promotion winning team from last season. Like I said
yeah,
last season,
yeah.
the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes, yes. But you know what? Great. I'm really pleased for Lincoln. Apart from them, that stupid siren they do whenever they get a corner or stuff. Like it reminds me back of Sellers Park in the days when we had like, um, did we have stuff that we did like that, or we had on the scoreboard? We have the hands and I don't know. It's just a gimmick, is it? But fair play to them. I'm really
they've
pleased.
had that. They've had that forever. It's like the war siren when there were bombs coming. It's that.
Yeah.
It's Harrow Borough, not Harrow Borough. Harlow Town had one. If you remember back in the Ryman League days, going away to Harlow Town, they had one of those as well. Every time they got a corner.
But no, great for them. Be great to see her doing a championship next year. But yeah,
And we'll
no,
see them again at third tier in a couple of seasons' time.
we may meet in League Two again. We'll meet again.
We will meet again, no doubt. But fair play to Lincoln. The interesting, their manager said afterwards he felt that one way to get us, they were really quite poor first half, but he said they were trying to turn our centre halves. They thought they could turn our centre halves and get in behind and exploit there, which I thought was interesting and probably tells you about our centre halves at the current time as well. Even though that Jono was starting that game, so I found that quite interesting. They thought they could turn us around and cause us problems that way. They were hamstrung. Sorry to use that word of all words at the moment by the wind, and I think we have to also accept that the wind was a big factor in the game as well, which might have helped us. If you're going to look into frustrate or whatever, then that's handy. I just thought it was an interesting comment from their manager. Lincoln itself, first time I've ticked it off since Bank. Very happy to tick that ground off. And Lincoln Cathedral, I was unprepared for how steep hill is. And there'll be lots of people that did exactly the same as me and walked up steep hill to go and visit the cathedral. Fuck me, it's steep.
So
Wow.
you didn't think Steep Hill was going to be as steep as it was.
Not as steep as it was, Stuart. Basically, I'm not even exaggerating, right? It was 90 degrees, honestly. It was straight up. It was like, honest, I thought I was going to fall back over myself. It was so steep.
So let's be fair, right? If you know that sometimes teams get to grounds the day before and then have a walk around, wouldn't be advisable for our team to walk around there, would
Not unless there is other ways to get there, which I think there are, but I didn't know them. So
it?
yeah, it's but Lincoln Cathedral, beautiful. Honestly, the wonders of the world, really. How did they build that centuries ago? How did they do that? It is incredible. So yes, if you've not been to Lincoln, I recommend it. That is a great away day. It's got all the things you want from a away day. It's easy to get to on the train. The stadium is basically within like no distance at all from the station, and then
Mm.
you've got this wonderful city centre that's full of history and things to look at. So yeah, I would recommend. Not that I'm probably
Well,
ever going to go back there.
no. But you know what? You know, you said about the wind. Surely that also helps Lincoln in some situations as well this season when, you know, you've got teams that can't understand. They must know where the wind's coming from or what it's going to do or what the effect is.
I think it was just the nature of the day, the weather on the day. I don't think it's like what's that stadiums that are always Blackpool, for instance. Remember back in the day, they always had wind, always would have wind.
Can I
I don't think it's
just
one of those.
can I just say that Johnny Jackson interview has come out, and I'm gonna have to abbreviate this and not quote it word for word from one of my mates. Basically, Johnny Jackson interview today, says we are. It's actually explaining what I thought. JJ's interview today basically saying we are the walking wounded, but the certain people are gonna have to play.
Okay,
Other
certain.
words, bring your boots.
I mean, Okay, so yeah, I've just gone onto the official website. So let's just run these down there. Hippolyte, no. Okay, so that's the one that I thought was most likely. No.
It's because he was out doing shuttle runs and stuff like that. But then also Josh Kelly was as well. Take that as what you want.
Oh, okay, yeah. Joe Lewis, no. Omar Bugle, no. I mean, it says it will be a late call with him. It's a hamstring. It's not, no. Bauer doesn't sound like it. Johnson knocked on a rushing back. So, yeah, Tilly and Brown are the ones most likely. He says dipped into training this week, hopeful they maybe can play, hopeful that maybe they can play some part.
Yeah, and at
Hmm.
this point of the season, you're going to make decisions that you wouldn't make during the early part of the season or middle part of the season. So normally Johnny would want a player to be in training for at least a week, 2, 3 weeks.
Hmm.
But we only have 5 games left, so you're probably gonna chance players who you wouldn't normally.
Hmm.
That is also a concern because you've got more chance than breaking down. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, if we were in a we are in a relegation battle, no matter what you look at. We don't want to get to Huddersfield needing points, thinking shit, we're going to put them all on now because we're desperate. When you go, well, why do you not do that a bit
Hmm.
earlier? So yeah,
We've spelt Hippolyte wrong on the official website.
that's not good. That's not good, is it?
Not really.
Out of sight, out of mind. Hey, look, do you know
Anyway,
what? The only thing I would probably would say is that you're not going to risk Marcus Brown, in my opinion, because his injury record was terrible before he joined us, and he's had a really good season injury wise.
yeah.
James Teddy, you might do because he's not your player. You don't really give a shit.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah,
although,
fair.
although you could argue Wickham might. Do you know what? If we did get some investment potentially, he would be somebody who you would like to invest in potentially.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, well that helps clear up the picture a little bit, but yeah, basically, um,
We're fucked.
yeah, basically, to put it bluntly, we are. But you're right though, because and again, we can talk about this a little bit more later on. There's two things I just want to. Yes, we are in a relegation battle because of the nature of the way things have gone over the last few weeks, and we've not scored a goal for what 3 games. But we are just one. We're either 1 point possibly or one win. So by 5 o'clock on Saturday, this could all be completely moot, and it could be season over with a win at Burton. So, despite all the panic and the worry, this could be the shortest sort of relegation battle ever. But also, the other thing is, we're talking about numbers, but don't forget, Nelson comes back in as well. So, there's one player as
Yeah.
well that wasn't available on Monday that we think we forget about. So, it might not look as bad as we're all fearing, but it's
Well,
still pretty bad.
you obviously know I have my thing that I look at, which is the relative form, which is points per game in your last 8 versus your points per game the whole season.
Yeah, yeah,
And we are minus 28. So I think we are looking at the moment, we are the fourth worst team on runs.
right.
But the three out of the 4 teams below us, 3 of them are in the plus 20% of points per game. The only one who's not is
Right.
Burton. Burton are roughly level, but you look at Doncaster. So when you look at it logically,
Mm,
if you look at it without an emotional attachment, you would go, we are 16th and we need 5 other teams to have a better finish than us.
yeah, yeah.
So that sort of tells you why you're panicking. Well, because we haven't got any players. Um,
Yeah,
and we also still got to play Wigan. We still got to play Burton. And obviously the home games. So yeah, I think we probably need 2 points to really guarantee it.
yeah. Hmm.
The biggest problem is that obviously Plymouth play Exeter at home park at 12:30 kickoff. So we could potentially have one further game ticked off for Exeter don't have, or they could be 1 point behind us before we kick off against Burton.
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope Plymouth would have enough to beat them on, but you never. Yeah, of course, you never
Well,
know.
they they lost at home to Burton, they lost at home to Bolton, who had 10 men for most of the game.
Yeah, but
And it's
Bolton,
a it's a derby, game, isn't it? Both need the points for different reasons. But I have this feeling Exeter unfortunately have a really good goal scorer. I think he got
that's yeah,
22nd. He got a 22nd goal of the season. Um, You would expect Plymouth to win, but at this point in the season, form does tend to go a little bit out the window.
The problem we've also had in the last few weeks is our goal difference has taken a bit of a hammering. So it's -7 over the last 3 games,
And we can't score.
and we can't score goals. But Exeter, sorry, 3-0. So we had a 6-goal swing. But the thing was that their 3-0 win was over against Doncaster, who would probably be as nervous as we are at current time, especially given their goal difference is the worst of those teams still in the mix for that final, what is the final relegation place.
Yeah, Exeter are what? Exeter are half a point per game in the last 8. So if you went on that form, they would get 2 They would get 2 further points. If you went on
Okay, well,
that.
that's fair enough. That was
So
then that
that's
will
it.
be
We're up. We're fine. Let's all book our. Let's all look at we're going to play next season in League One. No, there's no panic here.
Leicester away, LA. Do you want to? Let's just do this one very quickly, actually, before we get into investment and things like this. Looking at the season as a whole, because we've come on to that time where it becomes awards
Yes.
season. And I did ask on Nazi Twitter earlier, and thank you to everyone that responded. Oh, we got so many
Great.
responses. I thought I might be able to give a shout out to all of you. I can't, unfortunately. But the first response we got pretty much got broad agreement from everyone, which was from Gary Wilkes at Gary_M_Wilkes, who said Player of the Year Seddon, Young Player of the Year Nikeng, Most Improved Player Callum Maycock. And I think we probably agree with those three. I think you're not going to find too much disagreement there.
You know what, right? And I'm not saying I don't agree with that. I think that's probably what would be the consensus. But I think Marcus Brown has got a shout for 2 of those. I think Marcus Brown could argue that he's run second close, 14 goals in a season, and he's been
Yeah.
our most not talented. He's a game changer. There's no doubt about that for Marcus Brown. And you could
Yeah.
argue he could be the most improved because he's the most goals he got in a season was 9 goals. And
Yeah.
also, injury wise, that was the last time he played probably about 30 games, and he's got 14 goals this season. So you
Mhm.
could argue that he could challenge Maycock for most improved. I think
Yeah.
what wins it for Maycock is he's not played at League One before. Um, I think Maycock is like, he reminds me of Darren Anderton, right? Now, this will make you chuckle. If you remember, Darren Anderton, right, always used to somehow return from injury and also play really well when his contract was running out at the end of the season, the old sick note. Maycock does nothing for the first part of the season, comes back and he's like Seco in like, I'm trying to think of a player that wasn't Messi.
Who did
But
you say? What did you say? He's like
Seco,
who?
Seco, the old Brazilian midfielder. I could have probably picked someone else.
Oh, okay. That took me ages. I thought you're saying Zico like Zico, whereas I'm
Yes.
hearing Seko, and I'm going Seco.
Or
Seco?
Socrates. He's like a
Sicario?
Socrates. If we're looking at Brazilian team of the 80s, Socrates was the. I always thought was like a god or something. I was like, why don't they name someone after a
Yeah,
god?
he's a very famous philosopher. Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
I think
yeah.
Maycock is just his second part of the season has just been like we could. Let's be fair, right? If we had seen him gone in a transfer window in January instead of Harbaugh, there would have been
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
But he has just excelled at League One level. Bearing in mind, he's not played at League One before. And you could argue now he's probably the player you would like to get tied up for next season if his contract's up. I'm not too sure. I think most people's contracts are probably up at some point. But yeah, so I think Marcus Brown could have run in very close just because of how much he's improved. But I think that's your winning. I don't want to say combo. You're winning treble.
Yes, you've got some agreement with you on Nazi Twitter here. So the Isaac Ogundere enjoyer at Ogundere_67 said Brown for most improved. I think Roger Hopkinson said the same. At Rog Hob C said Brown for most improved. Some others said Brown for Player of the Year. Scouting Hive at Scouting Hive said Brown for Player of the Year. Very close between him and Seddon. Will Ricketts at WM Ricketts stands for WrestleMania. He went for Ryan Johnson as Player of the Year and most improved. So there's another
Yeah,
shout. I think there are 4 players that you could argue in that Player of the Year category for me. All right, so
and
Seddon
and the
seems to be
thing
the
is,
obvious favourite.
Og's getting nowhere near that
Yeah,
is criminal when you think about it because he's probably
well,
been the most
that was the name I was about
consistent
to
player.
say.
Yeah,
That's exactly the name I was about to say.
but is that just a reflection of how well Ox is playing at the moment? What I mean by that, right, is he realistically probably could win the young player. He's the amount of games he's
He's
got.
too old.
Is he too old? But was he
I
21,
think
22 now? Is he?
I'll double check, but I don't think he qualifies for Young Player of the
Well,
Year.
what I mean by that, he's still a baby in football terms. Do you know what I mean? But I think he's at such a level now where people have actually gone, well, that's what Oggs does. Do you know what I mean by
Yeah,
that? It's like Oggs
yeah,
plays
yeah.
that way all the time. And Seddon, to be fair, I think wins it because of the most consistent he's been. Able to play
Mm.
multiple positions. And every time he puts a ball in the box, he asks a question. Um, and he's probably one of the players we didn't all jump up with joy and go, great, Seddon's back.
Yeah.
But wow, how wrong were most of us?
I think with Oggs and Seddon, what it comes down to is you're talking about player of the year. Now, if you're saying to me who is our best player this season or most, I would say it would be Marcus Brown. I think if we're staying in this division, it's because we've got Marcus Brown, who
Yeah.
is the one player we have. I think it's fair to say you might disagree, but I think he's the one player he has that is playing championship level.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think
He's
I don't think there's anyone else that could make that jump, if I'm being
no,
honest.
no.
Um, so he is our best player, but in terms of like you say consistency, Oggs and Seds are right up there, and Johnson is the other one in that position. I think player of the year. So I think those are the four, but I think Seds will end up getting it. I feel like.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
yeah,
Keng is a no-brainer. Like
yes,
I
he's
would,
the only option. Yeah,
I will go. I'll happily eat humble pie. I was very reluctant to play him and give him any. As a kid, but wow, he's a player that gets me off my seat. Um, and so is Marcus Brown. To be fair,
yeah, Marcus
um,
Brown. Do you know what I think? But Marcus Brown for me is Nick King's still got a lot of work to do. He's still got a lot of learning to do. He's got to learn. One of the criticisms of Marcus Brown last season was learning when to pass. And I'm not sure if that
yeah,
was a little bit of arrogance from him because he was clearly far too good for League Two and he was still coming back from injury and that might have hampered him a little bit. Nikeng
yeah.
needs to learn when to release the ball, when he's going down a blind alley, and which he's getting sent down more and more as teams have come a little bit smarter about him. He's still so young though, so it's still really
Oh,
hypercritical.
it's crazy to criticise anything he does, but all the good stuff he does, he looks like you want in this day and age, right? I think we said this the other week. You don't see wingers like him. You just
No,
don't see it anymore. They're trained to go. You don't go down there. You pass it, and work your way around it. He just doesn't. And you're gonna have to accept that sometimes he's going to run down blind alleys and he's going to lose possession. One thing I did notice on Monday early on, was how much Seddon and also Jake Reeves were talking him through the game.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Jake Reeves, as much as the some fans want to say he's absolute rubbish and should go. Actually, if you want someone to be alongside him, talking him through games, he's probably your best person.
mm.
Um, and yeah, I just think he's like I say, he's someone who gets off my seat. And I would be absolutely gutted if we lost him next season. If we got interest and we had to sell. I think he's a player that would get better and better. And I'm more than happy to eat humble pie because I think it's been outstanding.
We have to find Jake Reeves a place on the coaching staff. We have to. I don't care. Like I don't know what money or budget it involves, but we need to find a way.
Jake sums up very much what this club. He gets it, loves
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
He's a great. I get on really well with him. I've got a lot of time for him. Um, and you know what? He is part of that 2015-16 squad.
yeah.
And he's still a link from that. But yeah, do you know what? I think he's a coach, and I think he's easier going to be a coach somewhere. Love
Yeah.
it to be us. It just depends, right, whether he still wants to play.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So he's what, 32 now, I think, Jake. Bearing in mind he joined us on his first ever deal. So I still remember his first game away at Exeter City when he was on loan.
Yeah. From
And look at
Brentford,
where
wasn't it?
he's look at where he's come from now. But yes, I would like, if we could do a player coach role,
Yeah. Hmm.
because it would be gutting to lose him because he's got so much to offer us. And, most of his career he's been with Wimbledon. So yeah, I would be gutted if he left and we didn't get him as a coach.
He turns 33 at the end of May. So
Yeah.
I think, and also I just think in the way he conducts himself, in the way he talks, do you know who I parallels with as a person? Very much Neil Lardley mold. That's the vibe I
Yeah.
get from him in the way he sort of handles himself and the way he talks. Um, so anyway, yes, the that is the Jake Reed's appreciation part of the podcast done. Last one, Louise Carton Kelly at Luck 2012. came up with a list of our own awards alongside those three, which I
Why does
think are
that
worth.
surprise me? Why does that surprise me?
Which I think we have to. I think I'll just read them out and see if there's anything you want to comment on here. Best Elvis hair of the year goes to Omar Bugle. Not sure if he had some sort of transplant or what he did with his hair a few weeks ago, but
What has he done? Like he's lost. He can't find his barber anymore. Like I
I'm not
don't
sure
know.
what he's doing. I
Maybe
don't
it's
know.
maybe it's just cold and he's just decided to go away from the skinhead.
She says, sad not to see the end of the year, Matty Stevens. And this is what we're talking about, goal scorers. Goal scorers when you need to get, yeah, at this time of the season,
Although
worth
Matty
their
could
weight.
also compete with the Elvis haircut. He's got a lovely bit of hair.
He does have a lovely bit of hair, so to speak, yes.
Sure, Matty doesn't know how to take me, right? Because whenever I see him, I always go, "You got
Excuse
such
me?
lovely." So Matt, whenever I see him, so I saw Matty, he was doing some of the press after one of the games, and I went, "Matty, you've got such lovely hair," and I don't think he knew what to say because, of course, I'm a bald person.
He's probably thinking, restraining order?
But I said the same to Josh Davis as well. Josh Davison,
Oh,
who
wow, I
again
forgot about
had
Josh
lovely
Davison.
hair.
Yeah. Um, Best Danilo Orsi wins lovely hair award for this season. I mean, worst
Yeah,
player, but great hair. Um, Best away game of the year, Leighton Orient. I can't really argue with that because
I
yeah,
didn't
but
go, but I can imagine with the result. Yes.
yes, with the result, absolutely. Had some good away days though. It's been nice to get to some different places this season and tick off lots of grounds this year actually. Sorry to see leave the AFC Women family. We'll come on to this a little bit later. Kevin Foster. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
And too many emails from of the year goes to the Don's Trust about the 50+1 vote.
Yeah, when you get your wife moaning at you for the club sending email after email, and I'm like, what can I do?
You can't really block their emails, unfortunately, because they're very important when they do come through. But yes, I think spam was invented for the word spam in this context was invented for that. But hey, it got the job. It got the job done at the end of the day, and in the week that was ratified, the second vote passed, and we can now sell a bigger percentage of the club and get some investors in. So it's all systems go in that regard.
Yeah, so I know we're running late probably, um,
Yeah, do you know what? Who knows anymore? Who knows?
but yeah, do you know what? Hey, look, I was quite openly said that I wanted us to set up completely, and I wasn't going to vote for that reason because I just didn't want to constrain us to 50.1. However, we are a democracy and our members have voted, and you know what, you just can't argue with it. I think we were a 60% turnout for 50.1, and in favour was 86%. So 6% turnout, 86% said yes. You can't argue with that. So that's the way we're going. And I'm just one member, but I'm fully behind whatever the club want to do with that. However, what I will say is this is just the start. This is basically saying to the Dons Trust Board, yes, we are in favour of going down to this. We are happy for you to discuss this now with potential investors.
Is if yeah, well, who knows? The thing is, there's so many unknowns still about this whole situation. What investors
Yeah.
can we get in? How much will they invest? How much will they put in? Who knows? All these things. We know, just going back to that meeting earlier in the year, we know the cash flow, the cash flow situation is uh, precarious, shall we say? So we need whatever needs to happen. I think pretty quickly to get us over the line and get us motoring for next season, which still seems a bit of a problem. So I don't know what are the next steps. When are we likely to hear anything? Do we know anything on these lines at all? Was anything said in the week? I don't know. I'm a bit behind on these matters.
Yeah, one of the things that was mentioned at the first restricted action membership, I think, was Roger Hodgkinson actually, who said that it's really important that the club bring the membership on side or en route with the journey to this new investor, which I've
Right.
I've said before, and I completely agree. So what you don't want to do now is for it to go quiet now for a month, 2 months, because actually we know from what the club has said, and we know from the increase of season ticket prices, and we can't be sustainable in League One and League Two, and we have Huddersfield paying £16 million on wages last year. We sort of know that we can't compete, and we also sort of know that. So what I mean by that, right, is if we just bought, if we went, we've got a summer coming up, right? Which we all want to have a bit of a wind down, and we don't really want to see emails from the club. But what you don't want to do is come back in August and they go, well, 1 second, we've been working all through the summer. Here's your investor. Vote yes. You've got to sort of add the journey with it. So yes, we're probably looking for an investor to now go into exclusivity, which would mean that we can discuss them. But we also have to realise that we want to see. I think someone said to me the other day, it could be like the Colosseum, where like you put your thumbs up or your thumbs down if they go and present on. Because I'm assuming, I'm assuming that any potential investor would do some sort of presentation, discussion at a meeting. And that could be interesting in itself. But ultimately, it comes down to what is the chosen investor from the Dons Trust board? What are they going to provide? What guarantees are they going to give us? And we all have our own red lines, don't we? So the journey needs we just need the Dons Trust board have done great communication getting this through. You can't argue with that. We now need to keep that journey going and keep us on side with it.
Foolishly, I just assumed any investor now it's open season, but no, apparently, so we have to have another vote.
Yeah, so it'll be a restricted action, but it would only be one. It doesn't have to be 2 consecutive months. It'll be one meeting, and it will have the rules. I believe what is that? 75% yes and 50% turnout. I think now that we've proven that we can hit over 50% and smashed 50%, I think turnout isn't going to be an issue. But the yes vote might be a bit more closer, maybe. Because it's like anything. If you're saying, yeah, okay, I'm happy for it to be 50.1, but then all of a sudden, I don't know, John Terry turns up with a consortium and goes, I want to be your owner. We're like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Where look our wife's away. Do you know what I mean? So now it's the investor, and that's probably a more contentious decision than just voting 50.1. But again, it depends what this investor's offering, and we've all got our own ideas of what we think an investor should offer. Now it's the proof is in the pudding.
I don't think there's a person alive. I'm sure there is. But if you was to put me in a room with John Terry, I think it'd be the worst person in the world I could ever be put in a room with. Like, we would just not get along at any level. I think he's the most contemptible footballer in history.
But you know what? And the reason I use John Terry as an example, right, is because when everyone heard that potentially Robbie Earle could be involved, everyone went, "Great, where's he signed?"
Yes, exactly.
John Green is similar, not similar to Robbie Earle, but John Green. No one give a monkeys who his investors from across the pond were, because John Green headed it up.
Yeah.
So this is where we are. Do you know what I mean? And I would say, and we're going to go on to it. Rob Dunsford on his Southwest 19 Army did a great blog, summed up so many things. But like he was saying, like now it's a case of it's excitement. I think he said, actually, you know what, some fans are going to be excited about this. And I'll be truthful, I am, because we can't continue the way we are. We've done it. We've done so well, and it's to stay in League One this year would be amazing. But we also know with the finances around the football world, it's only a matter of time before we come up against a season where we're not going to do anything. And we might do that with money as well, of course we might, but our own club have told us that we're not sustainable in League One or League Two. We need to keep listening to that.
I mean, if we do get relegated, I don't even want to think about those ticket prices in Division 4. But Rob's article, there was one thing that I picked out which did take my mind. He said that he didn't really feel like fans were really that bothered about fan ownership. He suggested that maybe for the first 5 or so years that there was a commitment to it, but after that he doesn't feel that way. And I mean, the thing is, this is one of those where I think the consensus, perhaps if you were to ask people, they probably would say probably not that bothered in the majority, but every time the Dons Trust does a vote or whatever, people say, yes, no, it's very important. It's the most important thing to me. And so, I mean, you can't, I guess when you take the results of those surveys that the Trust have done in the past, facts don't care about your feelings. But I do wonder, like I said to you all along, is that when push came to shove, if I can get my words out at any point, how wedded were people to it? And I guess that will be it's been. I think there's a bigger test of that to come in future, I feel.
Yeah, Joel, there was a few lines. Like I say, if you've not read the blog, if you're one of those fans who are thinking, what do we do next? Or, something's got to change, which as a membership, we've said it does. But he says one thing here. He goes, we don't need to be so poor. Poverty is
Hmm.
grinding and demoralizing at the best of times. And in our case, it almost felt like a lifestyle choice. I'm sorry, but that sums up. I've said to you, I never wanted to support Wimbledon to be fan owned. That was never the condition that I was always going to follow this club. It was what we had to
Right.
do to start off with. And he also says maybe between 2027, being fan owned was what it was about. As a well, that big word.
Yeah. 2002 to 2007. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe, and you know what, he's spot on. But when he said we don't need to be so poor, it struck a chord with me because I've been looking through the finances of a lot of League One clubs, and our revenue isn't even competitive. It's probably in the top 10. A lot of clubs are not making the same revenue as us. Yet we haven't got somebody to put money in. And if it was we talk about, I have this hope that the financial regulator, when they start showing some teeth, can bring a wage cap in. And if they did it on potential of your revenue, so if they said, I don't know, 40%, you can spend 40% of your revenue, they're probably not. But if they said that, we actually would be one of the stronger teams in this league for doing things right. So when you say you don't have to be so poor, I'm never a person that says the size of your ground means, or the size of your support should mean that you're higher up in the league, because in the Premier League, we had 50 odd fans going to Anfield and we still competed. All right. So we're on that side
Right.
of it. But I will be truthful. When I see a Salford come into ours, a Burton, a Wigan, and you look at their squad and go, wow, you can't afford that. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I think that's where we are. We're going to pay the highest. We're probably going to be the highest. We're probably going to be the most expensive team to watch in League One next year. And the chances are we're going to probably have on the 23rd, 24th budget. So that struck a chord with me.
You sent me earlier some finances about salaries in the division. This would have been last season. And
Yes.
these are quite startling numbers. Obviously, I don't even believe the Birmingham number could be true, to be honest with you. I
Well,
cannot believe that is correct.
well, it's double what
After,
it's double what Wrexham spent, and that's high.
I mean, exactly. I mean, but that's just ridiculous. But anyway, so sorry. But just the point you're making there about these clubs, like you say, exactly that. Like on the natural size of the clubs, there's no way that even Cambridge they got relegated, didn't they? But like Lincoln, Lincoln possibly, Burton certainly not. Clearly, Wigan, no. How are they affording these numbers? It's crazy.
So we'll probably post these. We'll probably post these on our Twitter site. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can sort of see what we're talking about. But basically, Birmingham, this is the total wage costs for the last season, 24-25. So it's probably even worse now. But there was talk that Birmingham and Wrexham priced up. So Birmingham apparently spent 38 million on wages, and Wrexham spent 19 million on wages. The lowest
Essentially
was
20 million.
Yeah, the lowest was Shrewsbury, who got relegated with 5.3 million. Cambridge had 6.6 million. What concerns me, Nick, the biggest thing I have an issue with is, right, there was two clubs last season that potentially were going to go out of business, go into admin, were basically going help, 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 and they were Reading
Hmm.
and Wigan. Reading
Hmm.
spent 12 million pounds on wages. Wigan spent
Hmm.
9 million pounds on wages. They're not learning. When
Well,
we
no,
say
no one ever does, do they?
football's got to protect itself, and this is what annoys me, right? When you go into admin, you pay your non-football creditors 25p in a pound. Okay.
Yeah.
Pompey did that. So when Portsmouth went into administration, they actually had St John's Ambulance as creditors and paid them 25 pence.
Yeah.
But then still need them when they go back into business, because you can't have a game without any. It's just, football is immoral. I'm being honest with.
Yes.
And the Huddersfield one that come out today is just unreal. They spent 16 million pounds on wages, which was 135% against their revenue. So for every £100 that come in, they spent £135 on wages. What the?
Yeah.
It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah, you just can't compete with these things. But as you say, people don't learn because people continue to get away with it and people continue to gamble on getting into the Premier League and the riches that come with that, which is why Bournemouth continue to be one of the worst clubs in the country for me because I just think they were so close to going under. At the same time as Luton got relegated with the 30 points, Bournemouth had 17 points deducted for all their financial problems.
Yeah.
And it didn't make any difference to them because then within a couple of years, they just flooded them with money, gambled, and the gamble for them paid. They got lucky, basically. It came off for them. They got up there and have sort of thrived ever since. But
Yeah. And
crazy.
what I would say, right, you sometimes hear people going, well, look, Oxford and Charlton did really well and got out of League One and into Championship. And you would argue that we're not the same size as those clubs, but they are clubs that you would like to benchmark yourself against. Oxford
Yeah,
definitely, because
Oxford certainly, yeah.
Oxford definitely, because they can't even afford to build a full stand. So you would do. But Charlton wages were 15 million for the season they got promoted, and their turnover they lost 17 million. Oxford was very similar. So let's not kid ourselves that Oxford and Charlton got lucky. They invested.
Yeah.
And they got their reward. And once you get into the championship, of course, then the money continues. But yeah, I think it's hit me big time because of how much we're going to be paying season tickets, where our wage budget consists of, and you've got these clubs that have just got no regard. And there's no doubt, in my opinion, that one of these clubs is going to go into serious hardship or even admin, and they're going to be asking to throw the bucket out for spare cash. And something's got to change.
It'll just be interesting now, with all that said, what any if we get any investors in and exactly what that does and changes for us in our spending, in our financial models and things like that. I know with the regulator and potential wage cap to come in and factor into that one, but I have such little faith in these things because we said football clubs find a way to bend the rules around when they
Well,
need
yeah, and
to.
do you know what? Rob said and again, Rob, I've mentioned his name so many times, right? But Rob also said something that I've said for many, many times is that basically, yeah. So if 23 clubs so it's basically about saying about wage caps. It's basically if 23 clubs in a division start paying sensible wages, it only takes the 24th club to outbid the rest, and the balance sheets start looking painful again to read. Which is basically what I've said with the Premier League. They voted in the PSR, and then most of the clubs found a way around their own rules they voted in. So football clubs always find a way of. Football clubs know they must spend money on players or have the best players potentially to get promoted. So they will all try and manipulate said finances.
I'm sure we will have some updates once the season is finished with investments and investors and things like that and votes and whatever it comes with that. So we would speak about that. Speak about that. I'm really struggling with my words at the moment. So what's going on with me? Speak about that more. Yeah, as and when it comes up again, I suppose. But it's the crazy world of football finances. Last thing I want to just mention briefly is news from the women's team this week. Kevin Foster has stepped down as manager, will not be with us any further. So we've advertised for a new first team manager for the ladies team, and they've made some appointments to the women's board for reasons I don't really know why. But yeah, got 3 new board members for the women's team. So Charlie Coombs, Laura Puddle, and Alex Reed, who I thought was the guy that wasn't he the UFC guy that was married to Katie Price at one point? Was that not him? I don't think it's
Yeah.
Ferguson.
Well, Alex can be
Yeah,
a male or female or non-binary name.
it is. It is as a female, Alex Reed
Yeah.
in this instance.
Do you know what? Yeah, gutted that Kevin's leaving. 10 years is a long time. If you look at the progress the club has made at the women's side of it under Kevin and his team, and it's interesting. The other day I saw Hannah Bingham, who's vice captain, but was captain under Kevin. She joined in the first season with Kevin.
Right.
So yeah, do you know what? Gutting the team go. The women's game is so challenging now. I'm hoping that we can stay up. We've got 2 games. Exeter at Plough Lane on Sunday, 2 p.m. kickoff. Um, they probably have to win their last 2 games to have a chance of staying up. So
Mm.
But Kevin, Wimbledon fan, I speak to him quite a bit when he's at Plough. A lovely guy, a lovely family as well, his kids and Kenny J. Whelan. Sad that he's going, but as anything, the club moves on, and we'll see who comes in.
Yeah, 3 points currently. So women's team are 11th in the league. They are 3 points behind Cheltenham Town, but have a game in hand, as it were. So that's going to go right down to the wire. This Sunday, as you say, are home to Exeter City. We are running late.
Sounding great.
We do have to play Rich Dog and Foyer's House of Games this week, did you? Because I have all welded this all together and brought all these different strands together and woven all the independent storylines for the podcast this week. The game this week, very simple. I am going to tell you the name of a team. They are the team that finished 21st in the third tier every season for the past 5 seasons. I'd like you to have a guess at how many points they got to stay having got relegated. And then as we proceed, going back the years, you can tell me if you think the next team got more or fewer points. It will make sense when we start doing it. Okay. So last season, the team that finished in 21st place was Crawley Town.
Yes.
How many points do you think they got?
47.
It's close. They got 46.
Damn.
But that does mean, you're quite right, 47 points would have kept you up last season. So crazy. It's not going to do it this season, I don't think. Burton Albion were the team that finished in 20th. All right. So the season before that, Cheltenham Town, 21st place. Do you think they got more or less, for argument's sake, more or less than 46 points? How
less, because we played them in the FA Cup and beat them 5-0. They were shocking. I swear
it was less. Yeah, it was less, but it was only 2 points less. It was 44.
Yeah.
20th. Who do you think finished 20th? It was Burton last season. Who do you think finished 20th the season before that?
Lincoln?
No. There's a clue in what I just said. Last season it was Burton. Who was it the season before that?
Plymouth, no. For say Plymouth Argyle then, just because you said Albion.
I'm giving you a huge clue.
Crawley.
No. It was Burton last season. Who was it the season before last? I'm
It's Burton.
Please get there. There we go. Yes. Burton's last 2 seasons have finished 20th. You wouldn't bet against them doing the same thing.
And had an £8 million wage budget last season. Sorry to harp.
Was last season the Robbo season where they bought 87 players?
Yeah.
Anyway, season before that, the team was those who shall not be named. They know what they are. Did they get more or less points than Cheltenham?
More.
How many more?
2.
It was only 1. They got 1 extra point. Yeah, 45 points. So 46 points would have kept you up that season. And do you know what? I think, if I remember correctly, they actually got relegated on the final day of the season away at Burton Albion because Paris Magoma was on the pitch, collapsed because he'd been a franchise bastard. Cambridge were the team that finished 20th.
They did, and they had a goal literally on the goal line. They couldn't get the ball in the last minute. And it was hilarious. It was like a Billy Smart circus.
Very good. Season before that, it was Gillingham. Now, this was the season that we got relegated from the third tier with, what's his name? I've forgotten his bloody name.
Bowen.
I could remember Eddie.
Not the one at West Ham.
No, he's Jared Bowen, and we won't talk about that.
Mark Bowen.
Gillingham were the team that finished 21st. Did they get more or less than 45 points that Milton Keynes got the season before?
More.
Do you know what? They got less. Do you know what? Do you know how many points they got relegated on? 40. Which means 41 points would have kept you up that year.
It didn't.
How rubbish were we that season, honestly, that 41 points, and we
Well,
kept you up, and we failed.
we did a reverse Callum Maycock. We had a great first half of the season and then crashed in the second half.
What was it like? 64 games without a win. It was ridiculous.
Do you know what?
Yeah, in fact,
Yeah, come.
sorry, just to say, Fleetwood Town were the team that finished 20th, and actually 41 points didn't keep you up. 40 points kept you up because they stayed up on goal difference.
Wow. Do you know what? The game that I remember the most was us playing Doncaster at home, 2-0
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
And we were all guns blazing to get the third. Doncaster were absolutely terrible. And Doncaster scored a goal, and in the end it was 2-2, and we were hanging on for dear life. And it was just that game that made me realise that we just didn't have the on-field nous to just kill the game.
yeah.
And if we'd have stayed up with, I know that's just hearsay, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But
You're
I
in 2
didn't realise
points.
it was so less points. Oh my days!
Yeah, awful
Yeah.
season.
I've just forgotten it. To be fair, it's out of my mind.
Well, that one I do remember, but the season before that was lockdown season, so it didn't actually count in my head. I'd completely irrelevant to me. But Rochdale were the team that finished and got relegated. They finished 21st, more or less than 40 points.
Yeah, and it's also, don't forget, it's the reason why Tranmere Rovers hate us, because we didn't go with a
No,
suggestion.
no.
Was
That
that
was the
not
season
that season?
before. No, it was the season
Ah,
before.
so if
No,
you ever
this was the
wonder
season
why,
where everything was played behind closed doors for the whole season, except for
sorry,
some random games like Charlton away where some fans were allowed in.
yeah, sorry, you're right, yeah. If you ever wonder why Tranmere Rovers don't like us, and if they ever boo us, it's because they got relegated, and
Yes,
everyone voted for their self-interest, even the self-righteous us.
yes. And Tranmere found another way to have ended the season, which, funnily enough, kept them up, which was strange. So I don't think they've got any. Yeah. Like
Why are you
everyone
not
acted.
voting? Why are you not voting for this? Come on.
Yes, surely it's obvious to everyone that we should do it the way that keeps us up.
And do you know what?
Uh,
Tranmere could be in trouble, by the way. They could be out of the league the way they're going
oh no,
now.
put money on Tranmere to go down. They're awful. They're stuck in a massive rut similar to the one we had that we got relegated that season. But no, the season we had entirely behind closed doors. Rochdale finished 21st, 47
Wow.
points.
Who
47
could
points. So
who could
48
be
would have kept you up.
who could be returning? Of course, we've got the two clubs that are over 100 points now, but at the top of the conference.
Yes.
Well, it's not called a conference anymore, but I still call it a conference. It's always going to be a conference.
Can I just make a point on this one, Stu? Right, because I don't understand this one. No, this is my rant for this week. Okay, so they've changed it, and it's the National League, but
Yes.
everyone still calls it the conference.
Yeah.
Literally, everyone calls it the conference because they're just like, that's what we've always called it. Why are we going to change it now? We're used to saying it. Okay, so everyone just keeps calling it the conference because why not? Everyone knows what you mean.
Yeah.
They change it from man of the match to player of the match, and every fucker gets on board with it. And I don't understand why. Like it's the dumbest change in the history of anything. Like,
So
it
we're
doesn't make any difference to anything. Why have you changed it? But why has everyone so happily adopted it, but not the conference of the National League?
so we're comparing a football league with the gender. Well,
Just say fucking man of the match.
it's because you get called out if you call it man of the match. People look at you as if you've just said the world's going to end.
It's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous change I think it ever. Like it doesn't. Do you know what? In all seriousness, oh, I don't get it.
What
You,
I did,
oh,
what I did notice, by the way, that on your tweet that you did about our awards, you did put Player of the Year.
yeah, because they've
It's
always
not
been called
man
Player
of.
of the Year. No, because they've always been called Player of the Year. So
I'm
why would I
surprised you
change
put
it?
man of the year.
Maybe I should change those now and do the reverse to make the point. But it's always been Player of the. It's always been called Player of the Year. It's always been Man of the Match, Player of the Year, and then they thought, well, we'll change it to Player of the Match for reasons which I still don't understand. It doesn't. If it's to do with equality between the men's and women game, absolute fucking joke. Because if you want true equality, right, you need to start referring to every single male team as men. We don't
Yeah.
call we're not talking we haven't spent the majority of this podcast talking about AFC Wimbledon's men's team. We've been talking about Wimbledon. But then when we talk about the women's team, we call them AFC Wimbledon women's team. So if you want greater quality, we should all start saying AFC Wimbledon men's teams. In every correspondence, on every league table, the Premier League should be called the Men's Premier League because they call it the Women's Super League. So do you know what I mean? Like, so the thing with the man of the match thing is that it's a daft, stupid change to player of the match because it's then they can say, oh, we're doing something, and it doesn't cost anyone anything. It doesn't cost any money to change it. It doesn't cost you any. Do you know what I mean? So it makes it
Yeah.
look like you're doing something useful when you're doing absolutely fuck all except advertising some form of virtue which doesn't do anyone any good at any level in any walk of life in any way. But fucking, we're going to keep calling it the conference though, because that's what we've always called it.
I'm so glad I brought up the Conference Football League. But yes, they've both got 100 points, and they play each other on the final game of the season as
They
well.
do. They do.
Just remind me, we've got 2 events coming up, by the way. We have the Player of the Year awards, which
Yes.
I've got a feeling, right, we should have put a TBC against it because it's after the Plymouth game, and we could potentially be in a bit of shit. Bearing in mind we didn't have a Player of the Year awards when we got promoted. So I'm just wondering whether we were a little bit too quick with, but that is after the Plymouth game. And anyone that went to the season before last awards, really good event in the 1880 Line Lounge. So hopefully we will have something to celebrate in terms of we'll be safe by then.
Yeah, I was going to say it is a bit random not to do it on the last game of the season, but obviously.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's more case that we got relegated in the last game of the season. No one wants to stay. And also this Thursday coming up, we have the Heritage events, which is arranged by Wish, which is the celebration, the reunion from the 2015-16 promotion winning team. I can't wait. That team is one of the teams that I've got the most. What's the word? Love, but it's that team. You know, they call it the Wolf Pack with Darius Charles, and I don't know about you, Nick, but I still remember the after party at Kings Meadow when all the players were on the stage, and I really thought it was going to collapse. I've never felt there's been so many people on that stage ever at Kings Meadow. And if you ever look back, I've actually got some footage that I recorded from it. I might dig it out. But either at one point when they started jumping up and down, either did seriously think that he was going to be even smaller and fall through the stage. But yeah, they're coming back. I think they're all about Neil Ardley. We've been fortunate with Neil Ardley and Simon Bassey losing their job at Woking that they can now attend.
Oh yes, forgot about that. Yeah.
And I saw James Shea after. James Shea, can I just say, right? James Shea is the loveliest bloke I know.
Yes. Oh yes. 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 Yes.
I saw him in the tunnel after the game. He made a point of coming over and saying hi. He still says, "I can't believe I said the wrong words on your tea question." Oh, by the way, I did have somebody at the bar in the 1889 lounge ask me, why does Nick keep going on about bag first, milk last?
Oh no, you got to listen back.
And I was going to respond to him, and I got a phone call from my wife, so I had to go. But yeah, we lots of people listening to us at the moment. Got lots of people asking about us. But yeah, basically, James Shea said milk first and got disowned by his colleagues. Then wanted to re-record it, didn't he? And we said no. But he came up and said hello. He was like, "You'll be all right, won't you? You won't go down." I'm like, "Sore subject."
Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not quite there yet.
Such a nice guy.
Yes,
Yeah, such a nice guy. And also, I saw Al Hamady. I got on well with him when I was doing the media and stuff like that. Again, nice bloke. Apologised for scoring. I'm like, I can't believe you celebrated. I thought you should have gone round and just with a sour look on your face. And he laughed. What is that all about? People moaning that he's celebrating. Mate, it's a goal. Let him enjoy himself.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't think there's anyone like not going to the reunion, as it were, on Thursday because Lyle Taylor celebrated scoring for Charlton against us at Kings Meadow a couple of seasons later. Like, no, he's dead to me now because he celebrated. Like, come on.
And Joe, Lyle is. If you want to see the Cheltenham, not Cheltenham,
Chelmsford.
The Chelmsford, closest I would have seen, isn't it? He's at Chelsea City, and he's scored 28 goals this season. And the second person behind him scored 6.
Wow. Still got it.
To be fair, he should be scoring that amount of goals in that level.
Well, yes.
But yeah, no, good luck to him. Good luck to him. I'm glad he's still playing.
Talking about people commenting and asking questions about the podcast, Stu, Ian Hidden responded last week on 9yrespodcast.org to pick up on your slight faux pas when you said that Luton was our first game back in the Football League. When
It's Bristol Rovers.
it was Bristol Rovers. Luton was our first game in the conference. The conference, not the National League.
And do you know what? Do you know who played in that game? There's a little bit of a link here, which I've heard not rumours, someone so Lee Brown actually did play in that
Yes, he
game.
did. Yeah, he did. Right.
And he had been training with Wimbledon in the January time. Apparently, people have seen him training with us recently. Could we see and this is purely rumours, I don't know nothing, could we see potentially a return of Lee Brown?
Probably.
How good would that be?
How many minutes do you think we can get out of him if Sam Hutchinson hasn't played for us this season? How long
Well,
do
it
you
could be a
think
case we play Lee Brown and Sam Hutchinson as centre halves because we have nobody.
Amazing. Tell you what,
Dad's army.
What a
Of course.
pairing as well.
And by the way, there's no truth in that at all. There is definitely truth that he did train with us because he was in a video that the club released in January. It could be someone putting my leg. It could be someone putting my leg. But let's be fair, we surely should be looking at anyone who's a free agent or can kick a ball to see if they'll come play for us.
Yes. Yeah, do you know what? Well, anyway, I'm not. You're going to get me on another rant about something in a minute there with what you said there. But yes, but thank you, Ian, for pointing that one out.
Thanks,
Luton
Ian,
was,
yes.
in fairness, when Luton returned to the Football League, we were their first game back at Kenilworth Road, if you remember, when they got back in. So there are lots of tie-ins and link-ups, and we won 1-0 that day. I think Matt Tubbs scored the goal. But
left the Pompey.
anyway. He celebrated, didn't celebrate. Yeah,
Do you remember? He didn't celebrate, did he? He's an Al Hamidi, he's an Al Hamidi person.
There is a little bit of an obsession with Al Hamidi, which I don't quite get, to be honest with you. But anyway, I would just say that I am a good person. Okay, so when we beat Ipswich in the League Cup, I didn't celebrate out of respect for Ali Al Hamidi because I didn't want him to feel bad. Okay, all right, to win against our former player.
Do you know what? I was more surprised about penalties that day. Like, I remember I was in a tunnel next to Aaron Sassu, and he saw Oggs go up for the penalty and went, he's never taken a penalty. I've never seen him take a penalty. And he knocked it top corner.
There you go. Isaac Ogendere. Do you know what? If he doesn't get player of the year, but he should surely get, and you know what, I'm going to say it, he should get man of the year. That's what we should give him, just for general all-round top man person thing guy.
Top fella.
Absolutely. Very quickly, because we're so over time, Burton Albion, then Gary Bowyer are in charge. They're 19th. They're 2 points below us. So there is a little bit of, I think they will look at it as an opportunity to go above us in the table and secure their status. But then that could also come with its own pressure, with expectancy, and perhaps expecting to be an injury-stricken Wimbledon team. They have not won in their last 3. We've never won at Burton in the Football League, but our record isn't as bad as I thought it was. We've drawn 4 times there. Okay, I thought we'd lost pretty much every time. I could only remember 1 draw, but apparently no. We've drawn 4, lost 4 at Burton Albion. Charlie Webster is back in the team. Jake Beasley scores goals. Tyree Shade scores goals. Predictions, Stu? Because I think this has got draw written all over it somehow.
Well, the plus point is that Burton is not going to be intimidating. I don't think that place has ever been intimidating. You're right; they'll be looking to beat us to secure their safety. The bad news is Aaron Webster's back, and I think he's a quality player for this level.
Charlie Webster.
Sorry, Charlie Webster. Well, okay, Aaron Webster. Oh, he was at
Burton as well, wasn't he? Centre half, wasn't
he? Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Sorry. He's obviously bigger. The other Webster's small. And do you know what? It's volunteer away day for Burton. And we have never won in the Football League on volunteer. That's what someone told me. So, yeah, I just thought I'd leave that with you.
Elsewhere...
I'll be truthful. I think if we get a point, we've done well. But I can see us. I just think all the situation around us, I can't see us getting anything there.
I'm going to go and watch a film between 3 and 5, and then just find out what the result is because I can't deal with the. Anyway, elsewhere, we've already spoken about the fact that extra at Plymouth. Other relegation rivals: Doncaster host Reading, so tough game for them. Blackpool host Peterborough. Blackpool will be hoping to win that against a Peterborough team that pretty much given up now, I'd have thought. Leighton Orient go away to Lincoln if Lincoln still want to win the league. So that's a really, really tough game for them. Wigan host Players Field. So they might fancy winning that one.
Yeah, I've not looked at all the fixtures, but the one that obviously did stand out is the one that's really, that's all we can look at really is the Plymouth Exeter.
Yeah.
Just because Exeter are the team that are holding that final relegation place, and we didn't just run out of games. So, yeah. But do you know what? It's very difficult to call games at the moment. This time of season, you see results that you don't see coming, which could mean we win at Burton. Let's hope.
Let's hope. Then we host Stockport on a Wednesday. Who knows what will happen between now and then? They're not playing in the league this weekend because they're playing in the B Team Trophy final at Wembley, of course. On Tuesday, Wigan host Rotherham, so you'd expect them again to pick up points there. Leighton Orient host Players Field. On that note, we need to go because we've gone really, really late. So thank you very much for sticking with us this week, despite all the
Thank you.
problems. Stu,
Sorry,
thank you for joining me.
My son has just joined me. Yes, goodbye.
Hello, Thomas. Goodbye, Thomas. Alexa Bliss. Bag first, milk last. 2 + 2 = 4. We shall speak to you again next week.